Global Digital Heritage is the world's largest 3D scanning organization for cultural heritage. With a small but highly skilled team, GDH has completed over 15,000 3D models, ranging from coins and jewelry to monuments and landscapes. This is more than the combined efforts of all countries involved in Guerrilla. We have done this with a guiding ethos: scan first, scan well, create quality, include locally, standardize never. We firmly believe that the archaeological heritage's community's fixation on standardization is stifling innovation and denying global access to cultural heritage. We argue that the obsessive pursuit of community or universal standards for 3D heritage data represents a fundamental misallocation of resources and a betrayal of our mission to digitize and democratize heritage. While committees debate metadata schemas, file format specifications, and archaic legal doctrines, Maya's museum collections remain unscanned or worse, are destroyed by war, tourists, or natural disasters. When we critically examine 3D scanning, storage, curation, management, and accessibility practices, it becomes clear that standardization efforts consistently prioritize bureaucratic consensus over revolutionary innovation, technical purity over practical utility, and institutional control over community access. Current approaches guarantee stagnation through elaborate frameworks that become obsolete before implementation, quality assurance theater that impedes rather than enables research, creating inaccessible goals remain fundamentally exclusive. At Global Digital Heritage, we use Guerrilla tactics: format agnosticism over standardized digitization, minimal viable metadata over comprehensive documentation, lightweight coordination over enterprise management, and radical simplicity over technical sophistication. The path forward requires abandoning our obsession with standardization and embracing productive chaos through rapid experimentation, distributed solutions, and community-driven innovation. Build first, standardize later, if at all. Scan everything, share immediately, improve iteratively, and include radically. The documentation and democratization of cultural heritage cannot wait for committee approval. Let's start with a parable, almost biblical, as rolled us to this discussion. The Oxford English Dictionary's creation story reads like a manifesto for democratized knowledge production. In 1857, the Philological Society of London declared the existing dictionaries were pathetically inadequate. Their solution? Not to hire a bunch of academics to standardize collection metadata, but to issue an open calls to the English-speaking world. Send us your words. What followed was revolutionary. Under James Murray's editorship, beginning in 1879, the OED mobilized thousands of volunteer readers across the globe. These weren't credentialed linguists, they were teachers, clergy, invalids, asylum patients, and passionate amateurs who systematically read through English literature, recording word uses on paper slips. Over 5 million quotations are recorded from this distributed network of contributors. The genius wasn't a standardization, it was embracing chaos and creating systems to harness it. In Murray's scriptorium, a corrugated shed in his Oxford garden, it became the nerd center where a flood of vernacular knowledge was transformed into authoritative scholarship. The reading program and instructive were literally simple: find interesting words, note their context, send them in, no graduate degrees required. This challenges everything about how the EU approaches digital heritage today. We obsess over metadata standards, controlled vocabularies, and professional gatekeeping. Yet the OED demonstrates passionate amateurs, provided with clear goals and simple tools, can create the most comprehensive linguistic record in human history. They didn't wait for perfect systems. They started with paper slips and pigeonholes. It succeeded precisely because it valued comprehensiveness over perfection, inclusion over exclusion, and recognized that skills knowledge lives in communities, not just in institutions. This is the model the European Commission should embrace with Europeana. This is the model we should be embracing for all digital heritage. Not another standards committee, but a radical openness that trusts people to contribute meaningfully when given the opportunity. Sketchtab, for example, has become the world's de facto Guerrilla repository for 3D cultural heritage. not through careful planning or institutional mandate, but through the revolutionary act of making sharing simple. While heritage bureaucrats debated metadata schemas and point cloud densities, Sketchfab quietly amassed over 400,000 formally categorized postal heritage models. This accidental revolution supports my simple thesis. The democratization of heritage occurs not through standardization, but through the deliberate removal of barriers that institutionalists hold sacred. I argue that the Sketchfab succeeded precisely because it violated every principle of standardized digital heritage management. No complex metadata requirements, no institutional gatekeeping, no validation processes. Upload your model to a space where hobbyists using smartphones had achieved what institutional teams have failed to accomplish: actually scanning heritage and making digital heritage genuinely accessible to all audiences. The 2020 introduction of Creative Commons support crystallized Sketchfab's Guerrilla philosophy. 27 institutions immediately released collections to the public domain, with Malapaska's virtual museums contributing 1,000 models in just 9 days. This velocity of sharing required months or years through traditional channels. By 2024, over 300,000 Creative Commons models are circulating freely, generating millions of views and hundreds of thousands of downloads. The platform's 8-pass optimization pipeline automatically generates versions of every their VR headsets to basic smartphones, ensuring heritage reaches audiences regardless of their technology or bandwidth. But here's the bitter truth that standardization advocates won't acknowledge. Sketchfab succeeds by embracing productive chaos. Individual contributors comprise 70% of the content, creating a vibrant ecosystem where professionals and amateurs collaborate without a hierarchy. Local Digital Heritage, with just 4 full-time staff members, uploaded 5,000 heritage models in its first 4 years, surpassing the combined efforts of all national digitization programs in Europe and the United States. The platform works because it strikes a balance between institutional gravitas and grassroots energy, demonstrating that democratization requires both. Guerrilla, in my personal opinion, represents a catastrophic failure of standardization ideology applied to cultural heritage. After 16 years of operation and tens of millions of euros in EU funding, the Continental Repository contains a paltry 4,700 3D models. But let's examine the real cost of this standardization fetish. The European Commission's 2021 recommendation mandated digitizing all appareil monuments and 50% of the most visited heritage sites in 3D by 2030. Current pace? Well, while the exact annual upload rate cannot be verified, EU officials acknowledge that the current pace of visualization is wholly inadequate to meet any targets. This isn't just failure, it is mathematical impossibility disguised as policy. The Commission publishes these targets knowing they're unachievable, a bureaucratic fear that would be comedic if heritage weren't burning while they perform it. So, Germany, France, combined, you're supposed to have 600 or 700,000 models online by this year. How's it going? Or how is the 7 million for 2030 coming? If some EC countries had adopted Sketchfab, they would have found that 10% of their 2025 goals had already been mapped by their own people. Not only that, but 75% of the supposedly open European heritage actually has been scanned remains locked behind false copyright claims generated by automated systems, curators with a false sense of ownership and institutional paranoia. This isn't preservation, it's digital imprisonment of humanity's heritage. Meanwhile, Low Digital Heritage maintained over 10,000 models on Sketchfab with documented capacity of Mass-Digitisation. We could scan 500 museum specimens completely done in a week at the highest quality available, or we could scan an entire cathedral in a week. When the combined efforts of Continental Initiative achieve less than a non-profit's regular operations, you haven't just failed, you've created an anti-digitization system that actively impedes the documentation of heritage. We firmly believe that the millions spent on standardization over the last 20 years have been the primary reason the EU cannot get its collection scanned. Instead of universal standards, I propose Our Guerrilla digital documentation framework. This isn't another easy acronym to memorize, but a philosophy to exemplify. It embodies radical and rapid data capture of the highest quality possible, providing near simultaneous availability to the world. And for free, gratis, gratuitamente. It represents a fundamental shift from process to purpose, from perfection to progress, from institutional control to community ownership. There are 5 basic principles. 1. The Capture First protocol embodies the revolutionary principle that existence takes precedence over excellence. Use whatever technology you have access to, professional scanners, cameras, even smartphones, if that's all that's available. Document what you did, not what you should have done before you get some distant community specifications. Accept all data, sort quality later, because perfection is the enemy of preservation. Every day spent pursuing ideal capture protocols, a day heritage remains undocumented and vulnerable. Number 2, the open format cascade ensures data liberation. Start with whatever format captures the most information, even proprietary ones if necessary, but always create secondary versions in genuinely open formats. Document conversion process in plain text that will survive software obsolescence. The goal isn't format purity, but ensuring that data can never be trapped in a single system. Freedom matters more than fidelity. Number 3, distributed resilience. Acknowledge that all systems fail. Store data in at least 3 locations, mixing institutional repositories with Guerrilla storage on volunteer systems. Geographic distribution matters more than institutional credentials. Community copies on local hard drives, USB sticks, tape drives, even DVDs often outlast governmental or academic repositories. Number 4, progressive enhancement. Embraces the reality of limited resources. Provide basic metadata and access to the models immediately, then enhance as resources allow. A low-resolution model available today serves your community much better than a perfect model that never is made available. Welcome community contributions, including additional quotas, contextual information, and corrections. Never let the pursuit of enhancement block current access. Progress beats perfection. And last, community validation returns authority to its rightful place. Let communities decide if documentation of their heritage is good enough for the needs. Their use cases should drive requirements, not abstract technical specifications. Technical perfection must serve human needs, not the other way around. Access metrics matter more than accuracy metrics because heritage that cannot be assessed might as well not exist. The path forward requires abandoning our obsession with universal standards and embracing productive chaos. This isn't disorder, it's recognition that human culture resists neat categorization. The standardization advocates worry about quality control and accuracy requirements. But accuracy for what purpose? A community member who wants to 3D print their ancestors' pottery doesn't need micrometer precision. A teacher creating educational materials doesn't require color-calibrated textures. Different uses demand different standards, or no standards at all. The Sketchfab European analytic dichotomy reveals the fundamental bankruptcy of standardization ideology. While Europeana spent 16 years building elaborate metadata schemas, Sketchfab accidentally became the world's largest 3D heritage repository by doing precisely what this manifesto advocates: removing barriers, embracing chaos, trusting communities. The numbers don't lie. 400,000 models versus 4,700. Millions of views versus bureaucratic desolation. Minutes of preservation versus days of filling in forms. This isn't just a quantitative difference, it's qualitative proof that democratization of heritage requires the destruction of institutional gatekeeping. I argue the Sketchfab success validates every principle of the Guerrilla digital documentation framework. Capture first protocol. Sketchfab accepts any format, any quality, from any contributor. Open format cascade, automatic conversion ensures accessibility regardless of source. Distributed resilience, every download creates another preservation copy. Progressive enhancement, the best online viewer in existence with metadata continually improved through community contributions. Community validation, users vote with views, downloads, and remixes. This isn't planned architecture, it's emergent democracy, a self-organized system proving that productive chaos outperforms perfect planning. But what terrifies the standardization priesthood is that sketch.art succeeded to innovation, not committees. While German and French museum curators had seizures of fear over the possibility of the 3D models appearing in first-person shooter games, there's not a single example of unauthorized use of cultural heritage 3D modeling game. Not one. Individual hobbyists outperform national institutions. Smartphone photos reconstructed with scholarly bureaucrats miss. This inversion of authority, where individual contributors matter more than metadata schemas, threatens everything flag-waving standardization concepts hold sacred. Instead of spending 100 million euros on digitalization protocols and metadata standards, the EC should have purchased Sketchfab. There would already be over 300,000 European models online. The Oxford English Dictionary's parallels to this manifesto are striking. Just the OED democratized linguistic documentation, virtual repositories of crowdsourced models will democratize archaeological and cultural heritage. Yet we continue to impose standardization requirements that would have killed the OED before it even began. Massive Murray demanded that every contributor use standardized linguistic notation or possess formal philological training. We would have no Oxford English Dictionary today. Standardization doesn't preserve heritage, it prevents documentation. We need guerrilla digitization projects that capture first and worry about standards later. We need pirate repositories that prioritize access over authorization. We need revolutionary frameworks that challenge academic orthodoxy. We want to weaponize the belief that people, not curators, own public museums. Most importantly, we need to stop talking, start scanning. This does not mean that we ignore local stakeholders, indigenous voices, or the heritage standards community. Do we advocate for breaking the law? No. However, it does mean that one may overlook archaic perceptions of museum curation. Ethics are ethics, laws are laws. Guerrilla 3D scanning is simply not letting zombie ethicists or standardization vampires suck the life out of heritage documentation. GDH embraces this exact approach, utilizing an innovative web format with Sketchpad who provide communities with what they tell us they want. We have teams in 18 countries working with collaborators who recognize that heritage belongs to people, not to museums, excavators, local administrators, or curators. And within this, for us, ethics and standards are not an alternative genre of academic publication. Instead, they are deeply embedded in the quality of our work and our community-based approaches. We currently have 5 years of funding totaling $8 billion to make this a reality. And now we are taking the democratization of heritage one step further. LiDAR. Presented at a workshop on Monday, we have $10 million to expand access to LiDAR globally, the next giant leap in heritage documentation and democratization. Do you need digital scanning for your project? See us. GDH is about 3D scanning for all and digital heritage access for all, and we can help you achieve this. Let's be clear. GDH is not calling for unhinged chaos. We are calling for a revolution to build productive chaos. Revolution in how we think about digital documentation. Revolution in how we think about preservation. Revolution in how we approach access. And a revolution in who gets to make these decisions. The democratization of cultural heritage will not wait for committee approval. For practitioners ready to join the revolution, the path is clear. Start scanning with whatever equipment you have. Share data immediately through whatever channels reach your communities. Document your actual process, not the illusionary standards you're supposed to follow. Build networks of collaboration, not hierarchies of control. Your imperfect actions today matters more than someone else's perfect plan for tomorrow. If you need assistance, GDH is there for you. Do you have sites and collections? We have the funding to digitize them. We measure impact based on communities served and the 3D models created, not on the scanners net. We serve humanity, and we hire revolutionaries who challenge orthodoxy, not rule followers who perpetuate it. The future belongs not to those. So let's stop playing for the ideal system and start building the one that's possible. Every day we delay is another day we lose heritage. We need 10,000 young people out there with cameras traveling the world and documenting our heritage. Want to join the revolution? See us at our booth or anywhere you can find us. We are everywhere. The time for pipe streaming is past. The time for radical action has arrived. Democratization of digital heritage depends not on perfect standards, but on imperfect courage. Join us, or please get out of the way.